In this video, I would like to show you how to factor a quadratic when a is not equal to 1. I've nicknamed these problems hard trinomials. So we know that the front coefficient is your a. When it is not a 1, there's a certain method that I use that involves creating a grouping problem. So if you have not watched how to factor grouping problems, please go back and watch that video. The first thing you will want to do is to multiply the front and the back terms. 6x squared times negative 2. That would be a negative 12x squared. Write it at the top of your x. Then the middle term, this is an understood 1, positive 1x goes in the bottom of the x. So now you ask this question. What multiplies, I'm going to use an asterisk instead of a multiplication symbol. What multiplies to give you 12x squared? That would, and you look at the last sign, subtract to give you a 1x. So think about all the factors of 12. 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. Out of those combinations, which ones would subtract to give you a 1? It would be the 4 and the 3. You would want the larger of those two numbers to have this sign. So we need the 4 to be a positive 4 and the 3 to be a negative 3. So we put the x's on because we need to multiply x times x to get the x squared, but when we combine like terms, we want our answer to have an x on it. So 4x times negative 3x is a negative 12x squared. 4x minus 3x is a 1x. So these two numbers fit our problem. We found these numbers to plug into our grouping problem we're about to create. So to create that grouping problem, you will bring down your front term, bring down your back term, and we're turning this middle term into positive 4x minus 3x. We know 4x minus 3x is a 1x, so we've just rewritten this in a different format. Now we're ready to group. Put your parentheses around the first two and the last two, and we know if we separate a number from its minus sign, we need to change the sign behind. So this sign behind was a minus. We are going to change it to a plus. It's time to group. Take out your GCF. So between 6x squared and 4x, I see x's in both, and I know 6 and 4 are both divisible by 2. So I'm going to create a parenthesis where I take out a 2x and see what's left. So 6x squared divided by 2x would be a 3x. Bring down the plus. 4x divided by 2x would be a 2. And on this one, I can take out only a 1. There's nothing else that will go into both 3x and 2. So I will bring that down. And notice how both parentheses say 3x plus 2. Let me fix this one. It's supposed to be a plus sign. I know I've done this correctly when I see both parentheses the same. So 3x plus 2 is my GCF. So take out the 3x plus 2, and you have a 2x minus 1 left in the other parenthesis. So this is your final answer. 3x plus 2 came down into this one parenthesis, and then 2x minus 1 is what the other parenthesis should have in it. And of course, I can FOIL to get back to this answer. So you always want to double check that. But for time's sake, I'm not going to do that. So let's go to the next problem. So in this problem, it is not a quadratic, but I noticed there's x's in all three positions. So there is a rule in factoring. Look for a GCF before you do anything else. So what will go into every one of these numbers? A 3x. So you would want to factor out a 3x, and when you factor out a 3x or divide out a 3x, this term becomes a 12x squared, this term becomes an 11x, this term becomes a 2. To continue this problem, we know 3x needs to be in our answer, the final answer at the end, but I'm going to only focus on the trinomial for now, the quadratic part, because I need to factor this. So I'm going to do the same thing we did in the previous problem. We're going to multiply the front and the back. 12x squared times 2 would be 24x squared, and you write it on top. And then you put your middle term in the lower part of the x. Then you ask that same question. Well, this one's great because we got pluses on both, so that makes life a little easier. So we want to know what multiplies to give us 24x squared that would add to give us 11x. So we need to think of everything that multiplies to give us 24. So there's 24 times 1, there's 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. So out of those combinations, 8 and 3 multiply to give us 24. 8 plus 3 is 11. So both signs need to be pluses because everything is a positive in this problem. So now it's time to create our grouping problem. I'm not going to forget about this 3x. I could technically keep bringing it down, but I'm going to worry about it in my answer. So for right now, I'm just going to not worry with it. And I'm going to create this grouping problem. So these two numbers go inside of this 12x squared and 2. 8x and 3x is 11x. I've just rewritten it with 4 terms. So now it's time to group. So stop the video and go ahead and group this problem. Let's see if you took out the correct GCF. So for 12x squared and 8x, the GCF is 4x. When you divide out a 4x, 12x squared divided by 4x would be a 3x. 8x divided by 4 would be a 2. And in the next set of parentheses, it does not have a GCF. Everything has a GCF of 1, but in this problem, it does not have anything other than a 1. So still take out a 1, and what's left? Of course, the 3x plus 2. Now you're ready to write 3x plus 2 in one parenthesis, 4x plus 1 in the other parenthesis, and do not forget to bring down the 3x. So final answer, 3x plus 2. We have 3x plus 2 twice. It came down as one parenthesis. 4x plus 1 was what was left. And in my original problem, when I took out the GCF, I cannot forget about it. This is my final answer. So let's do one last problem. Stop the video and see if you can go through this whole problem on your own. Let's see how you did. Did you create your x like this? 6x squared times 4 is 24x squared. The middle term comes down. The combination that multiplies to give you a positive 24x squared when you multiply, or a negative 11x when you add, would be a negative 8x and a negative 3x, or a minus 8x minus 3x, however you want to look at it. So I use these two numbers to create my grouping problem, which ends up looking like this. Now, before I put the parentheses, this was a plus sign. But when I put these parentheses in here, I realized that I need to change this to a minus. So I have to think about that. Now, I also want to point out, on purpose, I did not put my negative 8x here and my negative 3x here like it's written up here. It doesn't matter. Either way, you're still going to get the same answer. So I did it on purpose, and if this is different from yours, our final answer should still be the same. So what's the GCF for 6x squared and 3x? 3x. What's left? 2x minus 1. What will come out of 8x and a 4? A 4. What's left? 2x minus 1. Now, 2x minus 1 is my common factor, so it will come down into a parentheses, and 3x minus 4 is what's left. If you ended up having a 3x minus 4 in both parentheses, then you had a 2x minus 1 on the outsides. Either way, you still get this answer, and it does not matter which parenthesis comes first. You can always FOIL to see if it gets us back to this original problem.